So today in our Crown Forum conversation, we're joined by Miles Marshall Lewis. Miles is a graduate of Morehouse College. He's also a writer and culture critic. He's also a past arts entertainment editor for the Maroon Tiger at Morehouse College. And we're going to be discussing, among many other things today, his most recent book, Promise That You Will Sing About Me, The Power and Poetry of Kendrick Lamar. Miles, my good friend, decades-long friend, welcome. Welcome back home, I guess we say that.
Yeah, man. Thank you. You know, it's a pleasure to be here. I have fond memories of not going to Crown Forum.
Stop, man. That's the part we need to edit out. So
we'll fix it in post.
So Miles, I really want this to be more of a conversation really than anything else. And
Okay.
you know, Crown Forum is, as you well know, a place that is an evolution of Chapel. But I really want to talk about your work. I want to talk about your time at Morehouse College, how that has informed your writing and your perspectives. And then I want to talk about this idea of writing and the arts in particular, and how it is part and parcel of movement making and meaning making, and how it is that we can look at and map social justice, activism, impact, diversity, identity development into kind of the arts and things like that. So,
okay.
You know,
I'm game. Just don't get too academic.
No, I won't. So tell us, tell us who you are. Tell us who you are, how you define yourself, and then, you know, we'll just kind of go back and forth from that, right? You're a writer. Why do you write? You know, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I may as well jump into the deep end immediately and quote Baldwin in terms of him sort of self-describing himself as a witness. You know, I consider myself a witness. You know, I am eyes and ears throughout the years, sort of documenting what I see. I'm a lifelong journaler, so I've got personal journals that go back to 1986. When I was 15 years old, and I've never stopped writing them. And so being 50 years old, that means that I've documented most of my life in real time. And I'm able to go flip back to 1988 when a certain album came out and I was excited about it, and mine that material for things that I write in the present day, which has turned out to be really helpful. But yeah, I just always had a love.
Hold on one sec. Why did you start doing that? Like journaling at 15, and then how do you keep that discipline? What I know this idea of your being a witness, how does that manifest? How did you get kind of that Jones to do that and to stick with it?
It was just my love of writing, period. Coming to the page and creating something out of nothing always appealed to me. Certainly there are writers that I loved even at that age, science fiction writers mainly, comic book writers mainly. But it started out as an English assignment. You know, I had an advanced placement English class in the Bronx where I grew up. And, you know, the homework was keep a journal, and I won't read it, just hand it in, you know. And I did that, and then I just never stopped because it was enjoyable. And certainly it's gotten me in trouble more than once with different past girlfriends and stuff. So, you know, sometimes you have to write in code. But for the music stuff, for the culture stuff, I never wrote in code. I when the Million Man March happened, you know, I wrote about it. When specifically, really, when the Rodney King thing happened, the riots or the uprising, let's say in 1991, definitely I wrote about that. I was on campus at the time and saw liquor stores being broken into and just people protesting on the streets and the police wilding out. I wrote about that just for myself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know that I wanted to be a writer at Morehouse. Of course, I did write for the school newspaper, but it wasn't really until the inception of Vibe magazine that I figured, oh, okay, I get it. This is like a Black Rolling Stone that's about to blow up and happen. And hip hop, I always believed in its ability to be a pop culture mainstream movement. And it was just the right place at the right time. I was like, yeah, okay, I want to get in on this. I'm about to graduate, go back to New York, where Vibe is located, where the Source magazine was also located, and I jumped in, and luckily I found a way for myself, But it always went bigger than that. I mean, I always felt like inspired by even Maya Angelou, who has like at least 4 memoirs of her life, and sort of showed me like, okay, writers live these magnanimous lives, like, Hemingway even, Baldwin certainly, moving abroad, becoming an expatriate, like Richard Wright had before him. And I myself moved to Paris from 2004 to 2011, sort of inspired by their example, because to me, like, this is what writers do, like you live these lives, you experience these experiences, and then you sort of document them for future generations, and with a certain amount of, with a critical lens, let's say. In addition to being a witness, sort of see myself as like an archivist of Black culture, a sort of a curator of Black culture. I got that. Well, I got that innately, but an example or a forebear of mine is, let's say, Nelson George, who had been doing this even when I was in high school. I was reading writer filmmaker Nelson George. He had a column in Billboard magazine, which was the trade publication for the music industry, and I would just follow his byline. I noticed that he was a co-writer of the screenplay to CB4 and to Strictly Business, which was one of the first movies to ever star Halle Berry in it. And, I saw his evolution, let's say, the books that he would release, the Death of the Rhythm and Blues, so just as this sort of early multi-hyphenate curator of Black culture, I recognize that that would be a cool job to have, I mean, I've definitely always just loved Black culture, and wanted to document it in my own way with my own lens. Nelson is much older than us. He's probably about 65, and not from the hip hop generation. He's sort of more of a Motown generation or a borderline baby boomer. And so he's not going to have the same perspectives that we have. And so somebody had to speak for us. I'm not the only one. It's a chorus, certainly, of different writers who did all these cover stories in Vibe and The Source and Double XL, and at the time in the 1990s, when hip hop journalism was sort of a more vibrant area. But so I say all that to say that, sure, there are different pieces that I write that are just sort of in the vein of documenting Black culture, or saying what I have to say about this modern moment. I did a review of Drake's latest album, for a website, probably the day it dropped or the day after it dropped, which came a week after Kanye's latest album, which I also reviewed. So, I find myself having things to say about these releases. In terms of hip hop, I don't follow everyone. I don't follow all the various babies, what I'm saying? I don't really know them from each other, aside from kind of knowing that DaBaby is canceled because of homophobic comments and stuff like that. But certain people I do have things to say about. Kanye, definitely. Kendrick, definitely. Drake, definitely. And so I do so, and that puts food on the table. In terms of making a living as a writer. At the moment, I'm really sort of surfing from book deal to book deal, because Kendrick was just released. And I'm currently working on a book about Dave Chappelle, which is outside of music, but certainly within the realm of Black culture, which I consider to be my wheelhouse.
And I want to dive deep into Promise That You'll Sing About Me. But in doing that, and this might be a bit of a bridge, can you talk to me about, as being a writer, as being an individual who's curious, right? We talked to Jelani Cobb a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that he said is that his through line is just this curiosity, and this curiosity and this interest in democracy are the two things that kind of have been engines for him.
Right.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how it is that your writing, your witnessing, your documenting is tethered to social justice or social impact, or how it is that we are driven, or you might be driven, to enfranchise those folks who might occupy the margins?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, social justice is very important. I think it should be to anyone, with their eyes open around here. Definitely, I came up as a teenager under the aegis of the socially conscious era of hip hop culture, right? So there were different groups. You know, you and I are certainly familiar with them: Public Enemy,
Mhm.
Poor Righteous Teachers, KRS-One, Rakim to a degree, Brand Nubian, and Paris. You know, and they were all sort of speaking truth to power in terms of just uh, exposing young listeners, young Black listeners to social consciousness. You know, um, Public Enemy would name check people like Joanne Chesimard in their rhymes, certainly Minister Farrakhan, Louis Farrakhan of Nation of Islam. And there were breadcrumbs, you know, for people who hadn't heard of these folks to be like, well, why is Chuck D mentioning this person? Let me go research this person, you know? And so I think in our own way, the children of Public Enemy, which I consider myself to be, just in terms of how they opened my eyes at a certain age, have continued that work. It was one of the reasons why I expatriated to Paris for 7 years. Like my relationship with this country, let's say.
Mhm.
It wasn't just to follow in Baldwin's footsteps. I also fell in love with a French woman, a Black French woman,
Mhm.
I should add. But yeah, a French woman had my heart, and I moved for that reason as well. But in 2004, the Iraq War was beginning, and on the heels of a huge worldwide protest in February of that year, uh, President Bush at the time did what he wanted to do and started the war, which was completely unrelated to 9/11 and weapons of mass destruction, as he claimed at the time.
Mhm.
And I felt fed up. Politically, I felt as though, okay, I really feel that seriously about being against my tax dollars going to bullets and bombs
Yeah.
to kill innocent people. And I'm gonna leave. I don't have to stay here. I'm in a position where certainly my family was here, you know, my parents and brothers and friends. I was leaving them all behind to a degree, although I did obviously stay in touch and travel back and forth and see them. And they had an excuse to come to France to see me.
Mhm.
But I felt like I don't have a car note, I don't have a mortgage. And politically, this is kind of that important to me that I feel like I want to be an example, a modern example of the fact that this is possible to do. You know, certainly I didn't have and I don't have the following of a Baldwin at all, but it was the beginning of social media. Let's say MySpace was the thing. Let's say blogging was becoming a thing where anybody could have a voice if you just set up your account on blogger.com.
Mhm.
And so I had a blog. It was called Furthermucker, and it was about the adventures of like a modern Black male expatriate, you know, in the city of light. And you know, Baldwin never had Skype. Baldwin didn't have an ATM card. He had to go to the American Express office and cash in traveler's checks. You know, like the world had sort of changed for certain things. And so in the 20 as a 21st century 30 something Black man, I sort of documented you know, how things go. And certainly on the arts level as well. I was still reviewing from over there, all the artists that came to do shows like Q-Tip and Bilal and Michelle Ndegeocello and Prince, Jay-Z, Nas, you know, Lil Wayne, all these people would come and do their shows. And I would get tickets and I would go and I would say, you know, what their shows were like for a European audience. And I wrote a book over there as well, sort of talking about Sly and the Family Stone, and an important album that they released in 1971. There's a riot going on. Put that book out, and you know, I started a lit journal. I was just doing my thing over there, taking advantage of the fact that my office is my phone. You know, because the smartphone was invented during the time that I was over there, and just that the world had become a lot smaller because of the internet. And just being an example, like, look, you know, if you disagree with this country's politics, um, you know, America is not the only place you can be, and take advantage of that.
Can you talk to us about, um, I guess maybe there's a riot going on a little bit, but then jumping to Promise That You'll Sing About Me, and why Kendrick Lamar was somebody that you really wanted to write about, and how they might be connected to Sly and the Family Stone. How he
Sure.
might be connected, excuse me, to Sly and the Family Stone.
Yeah, I feel like I have an attraction to artists who push the envelope, and I think that's probably the bottom line. I'm aware that brother Michael Eric Dyson is doing a book about Drake right now, and I don't think that that's a book that I could write. I don't know that Drake pushes the envelope in quite the way that inspires me to, you know, do 250 pages on him. I think Brother Dyson also taught a class on Drake. I forget at which university. I myself taught a Kendrick class at NYU's Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music before the pandemic, probably spring 2019, sorry. And yeah, that class was my pleasure. I don't know that I could have done that class about Drake, but these are artists that push the envelope. To take it back to Sly and Family Stone, let's say that Sly was a hero of my father, right? He's my father's generation. Sly and Jimi Hendrix both came out of the 1960s, late 60s. And Sly was a total envelope pusher. You know, he's one of the founders of funk music in this country, alongside James Brown and George Clinton. He was an inspiration to George Clinton and a lot of the stuff that Clinton did with Parliament Funkadelic in the 1970s. But Sly had a multiracial band. As a lifelong Prince fan, I'm aware of let's say Sly's influence on Prince. You know, Prince himself had a multiracial band with the Revolution. In his most popular band, the Revolution, from the Purple Rain era, there were women in it. There were white people in it. You know, it was a multiracial, dual gender sort of band. And he got that from Sly's model, because the Family Stone band backing Sly Stone was women and was white folks, and he was pushing the envelope. Like I said, he invented a brand new genre practically. I mean, his bass player Larry Graham Jr. Had a style of plucking his bass that was unheard of, and has been replicated since a million times from a million bass players. You know, it's sort of a staple of funk music. And that came straight from Sly and the Family Stone. So to fast forward to Kendrick, I mean, I do feel that Kendrick pushes the envelope. I know that like to Pimp a Butterfly, let's say, with its jazz influences and the jazz players that are on there, Kamasi Washington and Flying Lotus and Thundercat and even Robert Glasper. Like these are people who you wouldn't have expected at the time to collaborate with Kendrick, because coming off the heels of Good Kid, Mad City, there was no reason for Kendrick to do anything other than Good Kid, Mad City Part 2. You know, just another G-Funk, well, I don't want to call it G-Funk, but, you know, like another West Coast, you know, style of hip hop, sort of like just to replicate that again. You know, he could have done that formulaically, and he didn't. You know, he went left and he got some jazz players and created an album that that was accepted, you know, not just accepted, but lauded. You know, I think that To Pimp a Butterfly ended up with like the most amount of Grammy nominations that a hip hop artist had ever gotten. And so really, yeah, he's just, you know, he's an envelope pusher. That intrigues me. You know, his follow-up to that, Damn, won the Pulitzer Prize for music, you know, because and it was the first hip hop artist to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Not only hip hop, but it's like that is an award that only goes to opera or classical music. You know, I think Wynton Marsalis won it once for jazz in like the late 90s.
One of the fields, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, for Pulitzer Prize for music, it's like they had passed over Duke Ellington for that in the 1960s, you know. And of course, there are racist elements to that decision, but Kendrick got it, and he deserved it. You know, Damn is a creative tour de force, and it turns out that you can play the album in reverse. You can take the track listing and play it backwards, and it makes as much sense as a story as playing it forward. And you know, he just he does interesting things, you know, that intrigue me. You know, I'm way past my expiration date as far as being a hip hop, you know, listener, a hip hop head, and yet he still draws me in. You know, I can't wait for this next record.
So yeah, so tell me, Miles, because I think that this idea of him being intriguing and an envelope pusher is important. And again, hoping I'm not betraying any confidences here. I remember 10 years or more ago, we were talking and you were like, dude, hip hop is dead, man. Get into, get your writing into something else. But here you are still not only having written a book on Kendrick Lamar, but, you just had a cover story with Nas and all this kind of stuff. And can you talk though about the genius, let's say, and I'm not trying to use that word liberally, but is there a genius about Kendrick Lamar that we should be aware of? I mean, obviously you think so, because again, you spent time, effort, and
Sure.
And commitment into this text. And it's not a tradition. I mean, and I don't want to give away anything, right? But it's not a traditional text, right? It's not just you bring people in to do some interrogation of him. We have lyrics that we're able to kind of deconstruct and things like that. You have kind of what might be considered kind of this traditional biographical trope, but then you go in different directions. So we see your creativity as an artist, mapped onto this. But what is it that about Kendrick Lamar that's important for other people to be aware of? Because that's something, you're in St. Martin Press, so that's widely distributed. I think you and I were joking, before the push for the book that you're going to see it in some Target kiosks and stuff like that. It's like, wait, hold on. So this is big time. I mean, not big time. You're big time, but in terms of being a big push, a big popular cultural push, why is it important for you to kind of provide some context and some nuance to what it is that Kendrick Lamar offers to culture in this particular time?
Sure. I mean, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, yeah, the book is available like at Marshall's. The book is available at TJ Maxx, like for real.
Yeah.
So this is a big push on St. Martin's Press's part. They did an initial print run of like 100,000 copies, and they're looking for a return. Yeah. So go out and buy it. The KendrickLamarBook.com. But yeah, no, I just feel it. Kendrick deserves this. I feel similarly to you in terms of throwing around the word genius. Sure, I consider him a genius, but I think that the more important thing to sort of consider is his work ethic. He puts in the work. I interviewed Kendrick in 2015, maybe a few weeks after To Pimp a Butterfly was released. And he gave me his time, and he was present and with me during the interview. Definitely, we spoke for several hours for a cover story for Ebony magazine. He was one of the first rappers on the cover of that magazine. But we spoke in the studio, and I know that when I took my Uber back to the hotel, that he stayed in the studio until like 4 or 5 in the morning. Kendrick is a Gemini, not like unlike Prince or Miles Davis or Tupac. But specifically comparing him to Prince, he keeps Dracula hours. He keeps Batman hours. Like he's in his Batcave, which is the recording studio, constantly cooking up goodness. He hasn't released an album since 2017, but I'm sure he's created several albums that we just maybe will not hear, or, that he'll pick and choose the best of for his next record, which hopefully will drop before the end of the year. Mm-hmm. But this is the thing that's inspirational about him. This is the thing that goes beyond just listening to him and enjoying his music and then taking your headphones off and going to do something else. Like he can be a personal inspiration to anyone who follows him or listens to him because of his work ethic. That's something that you can take, on your own, whatever your endeavor is, and sort of apply and get your stuff done. I mean, I always use Prince that way, and I believe Questlove has said this as well. He's a huge Prince fan like I am, and was feeling like, dude, if it's 4 a.m. and I'm working on something, instead of crashing, I'm gonna work till 5, because I know somewhere in the world Prince is in the studio working on whatever he's working on. Yeah. So it's kind of that inspiration for his work ethic. But I would say that in terms of my book not being a traditional biography, that's very true, and that's very intentional. I was inspired by Jay-Z's Decoded, his memoir that you flip through and you see that there are illustrations and photographs in there, in addition to a breakdown of like annotated footnote breakdowns of his lyrics of certain songs. I felt like Kendrick's creativity uh, deserved a book that was creative in its own right. And so I sat and figured like, well, how could I make that happen? Like, what does that look like? And so it's a pretty book. It's glossy. It has photographs. It has illustrations by my man Jabola, talented artist and designer. He designed the book as well. We sort of co-designed it. He's up in Toronto, Canada. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's commentary as well. I was inspired by the 48 Laws of Power. I know these days when people mention the 48 Laws of Power, you go running in the other direction because that's sort of a hotep, whistle blow. but, um, but the 48 Laws of Power has these quotes in the margins, quotes about power from different powerful people throughout the course of history. And I was like, wow, that would be a cool way to sort of inject some other voices, so I'm not just like pontificating for 250 pages.
Yeah.
And then it also takes some of the heavy lifting off of my shoulders so that I can tell the story of Kendrick the way I want to tell it, while making sure that certain information that needs to be in there is in there. And so I do have side commentary in the margins from Ta-Nehisi Coates and from Alicia Garza from the Black Lives Matter movement, and from Greg Tate, another important cultural critic that inspired my writing back in the day and continually. Darnell L. Moore, who wrote an excellent memoir about being a Black queer man a few years ago, and just other folks. EVA Ani, who's definitely a shining new voice in terms of cultural criticism. She's great, and she had great things to say. The poet Aja Monet as well is in there, who I met in Paris through Saul Williams, a fellow alumni of ours, who lived in Paris for a while at the same time I did. Aja is a poet and is excellent. So yeah, just making sure that I kept it sort of as creative as Kendrick's output is.
So Miles, I want to step back just a little bit, and I appreciate that in kind of the connections that not the connections, kind of the world that you've created in considering Kendrick Lamar and how it is that it's extensive and other people have the opportunity to comment and to lean into it, and what we can learn from him in terms of work ethic and a dedication to one's art. I'm curious now, stepping out of him a little bit and more to you. What do you think that Morehouse College students now can get from you? And I'm thoughtful of, I mean, we are the same generation, clearly, right, but you're a little older than I am. And I don't say that as, as a dig, but, but I think of you, I think of like you, I think of Sanford Biggers, I think of Saul Williams. I mean, I think of kind of these folks who came out of Morehouse College who, I again use this term, unapologetically themselves, right? And so what might we get from your example of being at Morehouse College? And I think I wonder to what extent your being at Morris Brown also helps you to have a depth and a connection to this this more global experience of the diaspora.
So I mean, I think you should allow yourself to be inspired, if not by me, then by whoever your Spike Lee is, by whoever your James Baldwin is, it's easier than ever to study people's careers and their life paths and remix it for yourself in terms of whatever you want to pursue. I think that would be the way to go about things. The book, the Kendrick book actually opens on the campus of Morris Brown College. I'm explaining, like I'm telling a story, let's say, about my time at Morris Brown, but also my first exposure to West Coast hip hop. Mm-hmm. It came from a woman who was from Vallejo, California, and I was flirting with her, and I was in her ride, and we were sitting in her hoopity, and she was playing Eazy-E. And I'd never heard Eazy-E, or really, I just had never heard of, and NWA, they were new, but I didn't know them, like I was from New York, right? And I didn't really even appreciate what they were bringing to the table at first. I was a purist. I was an elitist for that matter. And I was just like, yeah, too short. Like, no, like it's about Rakim. It's about Big Daddy Kane. Like, Easy can't rhyme. And, I had all these preconceived notions of what the West Coast was representing. And then, in 2 years, they were like the main thing. They were the multi-platinum rappers who were going #1, and Big Daddy Kane was couldn't go gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I say that to say that, Hanif Abdurraqib, if you're familiar with him, he is a great writer who just won a MacArthur Fellowship recently, like last week or something. So that means, a free $600,000 to do with whatever he wants to. And he was awarded that MacArthur Genius Grant for his style of writing, which is mixing autobiography with like social and political commentary and his own critical lens. And that's actually kind of what I do. Like not just me, but writers like Daniel Smith and Greg Tate and Nelson George, and I could go on and on. I mean, it's a style of writing that's existed for decades now, and definitely it's a style of writing that I bring to bear in this book. So I use snatches of autobiography to highlight certain points that I'm trying to make about Kendrick, much in the way that this Genius Grant brother Hanif Abdurraqib does. And so yeah, Morris Brown is in the book, and I think that Morris Brown was always sort of the black sheep of the AUC, right? And I'm glad that they've gotten their accreditation back, and I'm happy for the time that I spent there. I didn't want to graduate from there, which is a whole other long story. That's no diss to Morris Brown.
Sure.
But even after I transferred to Morehouse, I spent just as much time still at Morris Brown as I did at Morehouse, because I had pledged Alpha Phi Alpha at Morris Brown, and I wasn't going to abandon my brothers. I was still with them at the chapter meetings and organizing black and gold pageants and all kind of other things that were going on over there. It wasn't just that I was going to take my Alpha jacket and go to Morehouse and never speak to them again. Right. It doesn't work that way. Right. And for that matter, I love the students at Morris Brown. I love the people there. I'd gone to school with them for half of my college education, and so I it was cool to spend as much time as I did on that campus, because they were less they were less Jack and Jilly over there. You know what I mean? It was less of a bourgeois situation over there, and I appreciated that. Being from the Bronx and being sort of let's say more down to earth than a lot of Morehouse students were at the time. I wasn't quite used to I don't know, what else can I use aside from Jack and Jill?
I get it. We get it. But let me ask you this, because you've been super generous with your time, but I kind of want to end with this. One of the things is that you are committed to Morehouse College, right? And so,
indeed,
and I want to hear why. It seems like you have, you have maintained a responsibility to the institution. So anytime something happens in your career that gives you some type of shine, you want to make sure that light extends to Morehouse. So I'm interested in why that's the case. You and I talk frequently, if not regularly. We talk frequently, right? And so we're connected, and you ask me kind of what's going on at the college, what am I doing, and all those kinds of things that friends do. But you also always make sure that you let me know, and perhaps others, that you're available. I want to be able to come back to the school and share with students this, or I want to be able to be within the community and to share this. And this is, this is by far the biggest single piece of writing that has come out from you. That's fair to say, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
right. I would agree. So and you were intent on saying, okay, D, so when am I coming through? If I have to, and this is, and again, not to betray any confidences here, but you were like, look, I know you're not doing stuff in person. I'm booking a ticket. I'll be there. I'll sit down with 3 students. And I was like, yeah, look, let's figure that out on the back end, right? But your commitment is something that I think is really, really important. Why is that? What not, I mean, we both graduated from the institution, so I'm kind of speaking to myself in some ways, but why is that important to you? Why do you center the college in the very intentional way that you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's just important. I feel like, personally, I struggle with the amount of giving back that I'm doing. As an artist, we can be, let's say, artists can be navel gazing a lot. There's a lot of self consideration. There's a lot of self reflection, and you use that to feed your art, and it's important to do that, to have a sense of yourself and all of that. But just as in terms of community, it's important to give back. It's important to shine your light as much as you can, and just sort of present yourself for people to glean from your experiences. And I just don't. I feel like often I'm not doing enough of that. I applaud you. Hats off. For teaching at Morehouse and impacting the students the way you do and the way you have for quite some time now. In terms of academics, like I told you, I taught at NYU, and I did that one class, and it was my first teaching experience, and I enjoyed it, and I don't know that I could commit myself fully to being at a university, although certainly my inspirations have. Toni Morrison taught for years and years. James Baldwin taught for years and years. Certainly maybe that is in my future. But just the fact that you can sort of teach the students, that they can learn from your experiences. That's always, it appeals to me. Like at a certain point, you live life, and at a certain point, you've lived enough of it to be able to sort of teach what you've learned to other people, and be somewhat of an inspiration to younger people who might be looking for an example, for a blueprint. And I feel like I want to do as much of that as I can, and I feel like I don't even do as much as I could. So definitely, whenever that type of thing occurs to me, Morehouse is at the forefront of my thoughts.
Yeah. Well, Miles, I appreciate you, brother. I love you. I'm very, very. It always sounds kind of weird and condescending when you have somebody who's a peer of yours to be like, "I'm so proud of you," but I'm so proud of you and of this piece of art that you've put into the world, and promise that you'll sing about me in this framing and this nuancing of Kendrick Lamar. And we look forward to seeing you on campus soon. We're looking forward to your next book, and of course we'll be on the lookout for those significant pieces of literature that you put out in terms of framing the culture. So thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you. To the students, do your thing. Get your piece of paper. Rock on. Do what you need to do. Definitely listen to the elders in terms of just the people who came before you. Learn what you can. We all did. Even the elders stood on the shoulders of other people, and you'll do the same. And follow me at MML Unlimited, wherever you get your social media fix, and do your thing. I'm proud of you all in advance.